we're back with another one. Burton Kelso, welcome back. Welcome back. Or I should say, welcome to Serious Marketing Podcast. I appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, welcome back's good because I feel like we've been talking for a while. So
We've been
that's
talking.
a good greeting. Yeah.
We've been talking for a while. Yeah, Burton, for if you're a listener watching this episode, he's also going to be speaking at Serious Marketing event in June. So this is just a quick shameless plug here, so you can check out the details. But very happy to have you here. Obviously, would love to pick your brain, as people say, right? Just to go and learn a little bit more about what you do, what your company does, and teach people like about technology more, right? Because technology marketing goes hand in hand. So obviously, you being an expert at that, so I thought, hey, let's just do a quick episode and provide value for the people. So
Yeah.
can you talk about a little bit more, obviously, your background, chief tech expert at Integral, right? So
Right. Yeah,
can you
that's
give more background to the people? What do you do?
of course. So Integral is a computer services and IT support company. We're based out of the greater Kansas City area, but we do on-site and remote support all over the globe. So one of the things that I want to achieve with Integral is to allow or to be an important part as a tech hero or a tech expert for the problems that people and businesses face every day. My motto with technology is that my goal is to help people experience new ideas when it comes to the technology that they deal with at home and at work. I mean, I love technology. I'm the guy that's read all the manuals, and I'm serious about making technology fun, safe, and easy to use for everyone because we know that it ain't.
It ain't. So what do you say when you say safe? Because that's the word that for some reason is just stuck to me when you say that. Like, what do you mean when you say safe? So what happens? How people use the technology these days, or as far as you've seen through your experience, that's unsafe. Like what can happen?
Yeah, so clicking on links and not paying attention to AI phishing attacks and social engineering attacks that cyber criminals commit
Uh,
against people. I mean,
which
we
you
live
see,
in a day.
which you see a lot
Go.
these days, right? That's the numbers increasing gradually, right?
Oh, definitely. And the problem is that criminals aren't attacking devices anymore. They're using socially engineered attacks to attack people because people are the weak link when it comes to keeping their devices safe. I mean, no
Can
one
you
can just
So
get
sorry,
into your
do you have
device.
an example? Because I'm just trying to picture what would we have like. How do they? So for example, if I have bank accounts or anything like on a computer, so they instead of attacking that, they're attacking me directly. Like,
Exactly. So when it comes to banks or other financial institutions, they are very secure because they have people monitoring their network on a 24-hour basis. But me as an individual, I'm the weaker link because meaning the listeners out there, don't really pay attention when the phone call comes in and ask important information, or when I get an email or text message asking important information or asking me to click on a link. So those are the ways that people are getting hacked, as opposed to, oh, someone just got into my phone or my computer just by a series of keystrokes. You have to fall for a phishing scheme in most instances today to get breached, as opposed to, well, someone just hacked into my phone or computer.
and how people can spot that? Is there a way to spot those? Like, oh, it's just seems fishy.
Well, in most instances, I think it looks fishy, but most people aren't trained to look at if the email address doesn't match the company that is emailing you,
Mm,
or the phone number looks fishy. People just look at the information in the text. They don't pay attention if it's a local number. They don't take the
right.
time to say, well, let me see if XYZ company is really sending me this text message. And the problem now with AI is that criminals can fake someone's voice. So you think you're talking to an
Uh,
actual legitimate representative from a company, but you're actually talking to a scammer.
And that's scary.
Oh, heck yeah, it is. And so that's our goal at Integral. And my goal as a technology expert as far as helping keep people safe, because,
Yeah.
if you don't know it, then you may not be able to discover what is in the content of a phishing email or text message or even a phone call.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So obviously, as I can just imagine, because I came across obviously a few stories online. We all can, always can read about stories. If you just go to Google and see somebody got scammed by, somebody calling on a phone, again, AI, an email, that's been here forever, and text messages and various different ways. So it's getting, more and more intense in terms of just making sure that you're safe, especially for businesses, and you deal with a lot of businesses obviously working with Integral. So what are the pain points, like what are the maybe the weak spots that you see that businesses have, and how businesses can prevent from being scammed as well?
Yeah, the weak spot for businesses are people, because cybercrime is a human problem. Because
Right.
most corporations have firewalls and VPNs and everything to keep the criminals out. But
Yeah.
all it takes is one click from one of your employees and your company is breached. The best example I can give is the MGM Grand hack in Vegas last summer, where criminals did a profile on the people that worked in a specific department at the MGM Grand. They got on social media, they just scoured the web to find out who's going to be the weakest link. Then
Wow.
they cloned the voice of one of the higher ups at the MGM Grand, and then they placed a phone call to one of the weaker links, and they just voluntarily gave out information to allow criminals to hack into the MGM Grand. So every data breach that you hear about in the past 6 years, it's because some person either voluntarily gave up information over a phone call, or they clicked on a link in an email or a text message that allowed criminals in.
That's some serious due diligence. I mean, from the criminal side, that they've been doing that, and wow. So talking about employees then, in that case, if the employees people are still, as it described in a previous case, when you're just dealing with just people in general, right? If you have a computer, you still are the weakest link, in terms of that technology. So how do companies prevent that? Like, is there a certain training that you see people do? Maybe Integral provide some sort of a training for companies, and you have a specific process to prevent, you know, train people to also spot these things from happening.
Well, one of the premier ways that companies will test out their employees and workforce is to send out the bogus email that has a link in it to see if the person clicks on the link. If they don't, it's good. But if you do, then I think that's where the problem starts with the corporations, is how do you
Mm,
treat the employee? I mean, you go to special training. I know a lot of times people are made to feel like the proverbial dog who made a mess in the house, and they just get their nose slapped like bad dog.
mm,
And those methods don't work.
yeah.
I think the methods that do work is when you praise employees when they avoid clicking on the link, maybe making them the cybersecurity expert of the month or of the
Mm,
week, but just incentives in
yeah.
order to let people know that it's just not IT, but it's up to you to also be diligent to ensure that our company doesn't fall for the latest data breach. Because I know it costs companies, thousands to hundred thousands to millions of dollars in some of these breaches, but I don't think if you just go through the process of, well, we just fired Ethel or
Mm,
Jethro, then that doesn't always fix it. You just have to make cybersecurity a team effort and let everyone know that it's their responsibility as well as IT's to make sure that the company doesn't get hacked.
yeah. Very true. I mean, I've been talking with a lot of people back in the past, and I'm thinking that was probably a good 3 years. I remember one individual in particular, and he is part of the Rich Dad Poor Dad group, Garrett
Right.
Sutton. He's also a lawyer for the Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I had him on a podcast and we talked about him. We discussed real estate and all the different things that also he's involved with, Robert. And that was a good 3 years ago. I think that was actually even longer. And he had a book, and he was talking about this 3 or more years back. And he said cybersecurity. He said, and he came up with a book, and he said that's going to be a real threat for businesses, And that's where I started to pay attention. Obviously, there's always a next level. You can never overprotect yourself, right? So you need to look at all these different pieces in infrastructure and IT services. So talking about that, Burton, can you give us a business owner, let's say like myself, what type of technology, infrastructure, IT, support services can I implement or have in a business for that kind of long-term success?
Yeah, I'll give 4 instances. So number one, build your human firewall, meaning that you as a business owner and all business owners out there need to be able to identify what a phishing scheme looks like and set in place keywords if someone were to call with a voice clone. If someone is calling a company and it's a criminal using voice cloning, you've got to have a passphrase that you can deliver out so that criminals won't be able to trick you. So that system has to be set up. But the other three are pretty easy to do. So number one, number two, I should say, you've got to move away from the practice of using old standard passwords and adopt a method of using passphrases instead. So passphrases are easy for you to remember because they're basically just 2 or more words or different words that create a strong password. So an example of a passphrase would be rocking, let me think of one, rocking Corvette like 2019, or Audi on the dirt road 2015 exclamation point. Or my favorite is stinky chicken 2024 exclamation point. But you get the idea is that if you get into this rhythm of words, it's a lot easier than to remember these rather than a method of just random numbers and letters. And, that's just difficult. And on top of that, people need to adopt the practice of using a password manager so that you don't have to commit all of these wonky passwords to memory. The next would be, so step 3 would be to set up 2-factor or 2-step authentication for your online accounts, making sure that if a criminal were to guess your password, your online account's going to come back with a second form of verification to say, hey, is this you over in Addis Ababa, Saudi Arabia, trying to log into your account, but you're currently in London. So 2-step factor authentication is important. And then number 4, I think I just blurted it out, but again, password keepers are very important so that you can keep track of all of those online accounts. Because if you don't have a password keeper, then it's just going to be almost impossible to remember all those difficult to use passwords.
Yeah, for sure. And I can already
that's it, because I was going to say that's
already
it.
Think about people. You mentioned Stinky Chicken 2024. I can already picture people trying to log into Burton's account, which don't try to do that. He knows what he's doing. But I wanted to ask you about passwords. Obviously, what will be the right way for the business owner that's listening, myself? Where do you store that? Where do you store that information? Maybe somebody's a social media influencer. He has accounts of Instagram 100,000, at YouTube crossing almost like 1 million followers, and all these other TikTok and Twitter and all these other important accounts for them to do brand deals, grow their business, whatever they do, right? Where do you store that data? Where do you store the passwords, the logins? Is it on a C disk, D disk? Is it external drive? Is it on cloud and AWS? Like, what's the right place to store this information?
Well, probably the most secure location would be to write it down in a book or dictionary, but obviously that's not feasible. So your online password keepers, like the ones in your web browsers, are probably some of the most secure password keepers that you can use, because Chrome Edge, Safari, Opera, Firefox, they all have password keepers built into it. Now, as far as the security of those, that all depends on what type of password or passphrase you use to protect your online password vault. But it's convenient if you store it in your browser. You can use third-party programs like I know Dashlane has a program or 1Password has a program. And
LastPass.
LastPass used to
Yep.
it used to be at the top, but they got hacked. So
Oh, yeah, I heard. Yeah.
yeah, you want to stay away from that one. But the whole goal is for cyber criminals to keep them out of your accounts is to use different passwords for all of your online accounts. So let's say your Uber password got hacked. You're not going to lose access to your financial accounts. And it's tempting for people to use the same password because it's easy, but in a 12-year period, all of our data is stored or somewhere on the dark web. So criminals have access to it. They have access to your data. So it's better to have a multitude of passphrases and to make sure that you're changing them on a random basis. Now, there is a website that you can visit called useapassphrase.com that will allow you to have auto AI generated passphrases created for you. So that way you don't have to work so hard with coming up with password combinations. But the other good thing about using a password manager, if one of your passwords falls on the dark web, your online password manager through your browser will send you an alert to let you know that your password that you're using is floating on the dark web. So, I mean, it's important to implement those types of features as part of your human firewall to make sure that you're keeping safe from all of the cyber crooks that are out there.
I like that. I like that. That's very important. Because for me also, I remember I had an Instagram account. There was nothing happening there. It was just a private account years back, probably 10 years ago or something. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but and that account got hacked even at the time. And sometimes because I still receive those emails because I still use that email that's attached to the Instagram, and I see just people logging in like Russia, Brazil, Cuba. So this account is just being passed around. It's just like somebody's trying to do something with that account, which is like has like 20 followers or something. So, but it's just crazy
Right.
to think about that. This is what you're saying. The dark web is out there, and people should be aware of that. So,
Yeah, the other thing that people should be aware of too, even if you have a social media account that has 20 followers, think about it. If 20 people came up to you and told you what an awesome job you did, that would be overwhelming. And criminals think like that because they're like, well, 20 people could lead us to 2,000 people if we play it right. So if we make the right connection and connect with someone with this bogus social media account, we can increase the amount of people that we can scam. So even if you don't have a lot of followers with your social media account, understand that criminals are always working up and trying to get access to larger accounts. So make the effort to ensure that your social media account is safe and secure, no matter how many followers you have.
yeah. Because if I would be a hacker, if I would be one of those people, I probably would target those accounts that even have a lower following, because
Right.
they seem more real, right? Because we all know that, you can buy followers, you can just jack those numbers up to millions almost, right? So,
Right.
and a lot of people are being really conscious about it, and obviously a lot of still not, but they're like, oh, okay, this just is not a real account. Likes a bot, comments about everything's bot, so it's a fake account, right? And they're trying
Right.
to attract victims potentially, right? So I think that's what I would do. I would just go to those 5,000, 10,000 accounts, right, and try to hack them. So yeah,
Exactly.
very important. So talking again about the positive side in terms of technology, using technology inside of the business, what emerging technology trends, obviously I'm sure there's a lot, do you see that probably would have the most significant impact for businesses out there?
I would have to say it would be AI in the simple fact that when we look at generative AI tools like Midjourney or the tools built into Canva, and obviously ChatGPT, Microsoft's new Copilot, and Google's Bard, is that it has the potential to free us from our tech devices. Because if you look at generative tools or generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Bard, if you're looking to solve a problem, you can just go to AI and it will give you an answer that you want. Before AI or generative AI came out, if we needed answers to problems, we would have to search a gazillion Google pages in order to get that information. Now, we can have a one-on-one conversation with AI like you and I are having and get the answers that we want and expound on those as far as the problem solving, because we can continue the conversation with AI. With Google, you look up a problem, you're like, that's not going to solve it. So then you've got to figure out what Google query can you put in to possibly find the website that has this answer. But with AI databases filled with just about every solution out there, if you put in, even if you didn't put in the right prompt initially, you could go on with other prompts and figure out the solution to the problem that you have. And AI isn't just for businesses. You've got ChatGPT as an app, you've got Bing Chat as an app. And so everyday people, even seniors, can get the most out of AI because AI allows us to do what we do best, which is to talk to other people in a language that we understand. And then the response that we get back is in the language that we understand. With old programming methods, like with DOS, you had to understand DOS to talk to a machine to get an answer. Same thing with graphical user interfaces. If an error pops up, you can't know what that error is because the operating system's like, I'm a machine, and it just throws out what it knows. But when we start to incorporate AI into all areas of our lives, if we have a problem with the machine, it can tell you in very human terms what's going on and how you can fix the problem with the machine. And if you're having problems in your everyday life and everyday business, I can put that scenario in as a prompt, and AI will come back to me like a person and say, okay, well, yeah, I get what's going on. Now, let me tell you in everyday terms how to solve that problem. And that's the power of AI.
Yeah. I mean, that's a super big topic here. I mean, a lot of people, I see even with serious marketing event, there's so many people going to be talking about. We have keynotes and panels for topics of AI of, different kinds. Huge topic. Again, this year, I'm very curious myself. Obviously, we're using a lot of the AI tools because they just help, in terms of saving time and whatnot. But still, at the end of the day, the human, I just had, a podcast yesterday with Kabrina, we talked about it. So Kabrina Ashley. So we also talked about that, individual is still in charge. We're in charge. We're the input. We provide the input for AI. If it's creating a prompt, if it's doing something, right? Because this kind of creative. So we have the creative, right? So what do you think in terms of that? Like, how can people, companies, individuals that sitting inside of those companies leverage that, as best way possible? Because there's so many different tools. I mean, personally myself, when I went back to the marketing industry, I just became overwhelmed. Seriously, like when you look at all these different tools, and like you mentioned a few of those just now, you can really easily get overwhelmed because there's so many of those, right? And you don't even know which one to grab, what to do with it, and because everybody's just trying to do the next thing, the best thing, and that's what we as people. It just seems like naturally we're just chasing that, the next iPhone, the next this, the next that, and it's just a progress. So I think that's also part of the reasons why technology is accelerating so fast, right? Because we're just chasing this next thing. But how we can slow down, look at what's in the market out there, and choose the right tools that can help to grow our business today.
Yeah, the challenge with AI is there's so many tools out there, and I think companies are probably now experiencing a bring your own AI situation with their workforce, because people sometimes will gravitate towards ChatGPT, or they may gravitate to Copilot or Bing, or even Google's Bard. But I think companies need to do their own internal investigation to find out what AI tools are going to work and to make sure that they're setting place rules for AI usage so that they don't get hit with a massive lawsuit. Because
Oh,
even
yeah.
though people know with generative AI that you may be copywriting or stealing someone's copyright or intellectual property, people are going to use it anyway because when it comes to technology and people, sometimes we just get lazy with it. I mean, there's been people that have stolen articles off of Google or snippets of articles. So as a company, you really have to set policies and procedures in place for AI usage. Are you going to only allow content to be created by a specific amount of AI tools, or maybe even only one AI tool? But companies can no longer ignore it. So you've got to get your policies in place as far as AI usage. Most companies have a cyber security or technology agreement that they have for their workforce, but it's time for companies to step up their game, investigate, find out which tools that are going to be used because now it's too late. The AI monster's out of the box. There's no way that you can close that box because even if you try to ban it, people are going to find ways to utilize AI at a company. If you block AI websites on your company network, then people are just going to go to their smartphones and do the same thing. So there's really no way to avoid it. The only thing that you can do is embrace it and make sure that your staff are using the proper tools and everyone's on board with the same tools at a company when it comes to how you're going to use AI.
How do you see people, companies, individuals inside of the companies, and the shape that those companies are going to take in different industries? Because AI,
Yeah.
I think, and again, a lot of people are still overboard in terms of just AI as an idea. They don't think, they need it. Maybe the companies has been here, for a long time, maybe a couple hundred years, which I understand. But
Mm-hmm.
again, some of the AI probably won't do any harm to the company to implement. But look in 2030. So how do you think, like, as being involved in a technology, heavily dealing with a lot of businesses, how's it going to look like? Is all the businesses going to be run? Half of the people will be gone, and the company's going to be run by AI. People are going to be jobless. Like, what's the upside or downside of using AI kind of long term, maybe 10, 20 years from now?
Yeah, the upside for companies is, and we can't forget chatbots, and that we're evolving into an age that companies are like, well, we don't need people to answer the phone. We'll just have a series of chatbots. And I think Frontier Airlines is ran into that a while saying, hey, people want to talk to chatbots. But I think what we're going to see is that we're going to see a surge in the use of AI. And then you're going to see when companies are start leaving and working with companies that are trying to be chatbot and AI exclusive and get back to a world where people and AI are working hand in hand. One of the best examples I can give would be a call center. And the companies that do it right are your internet service providers, because internet service provider problems are so complex that you can't have a
Mm.
chatbot walk you through, well, here's how you reset your DVR box, or here's how we can get your channels back, or we need to set up service for you. Here's the process of it. So I think most of your internet service providers do it where we're going to wind up. When you initially call in, you have a chatbot that sends you to the right human, where we have now companies that are just like, we're going to have a chat bot send you to another chat bot. And then if that doesn't work, then we're just going to do it via text. It doesn't work that way. And technology companies, I think for the most part, understand that. Like with Google or Microsoft, they have a ticket system, but you still get to a person after you deal with the chatbots, rather than some small and large companies that's all they'll have you deal with. So I think we're going to have this romance with AI in all forms, generative and chatbot technology. But the toy of AI won't be as shiny in the year 2030. And people will realize, well, we can use chatbots for specific things, like if someone visits your social media channel or your website, the chatbot's going to ask you a few questions and then direct you to a human. But I mean, there's a purpose out there. It's just when it comes to technology, we have to leverage it out and find out what's going to be the best combination of using AI and keeping people.
Hmm. So what will be the major downside, as you would see, like, because a lot of people obviously, as it's a split, we have split opinions, and maybe a third one in between in terms of AI and what is it going to do for just for the humanity, right? Because it's a really big topic, and there's a lot of people are really excited about this, a lot of people concerned, people in the middle, they don't know what to think of it. So when we're thinking about major, like, oh my God, this is going to take over the world, Terminator scenario, pretty much. Is this the real future? Should people be concerned to some point? Because you've probably seen some talks. Because I've been looking at some talks. Obviously, if we Sam Altman or Elon Musk or just a bunch of people talking about AI and their vision of the future. So, what do you think the major challenges could be, for the future in terms of using AI?
Well, the major challenges are bad actors or cyber criminals can utilize AI in order to trick people. So I think that's the biggest concern because obviously with AI, criminals can generate phishing schemes that are going to trick people. They can use voice cloning to trick people. They can use deep fakes to trick people. And then unfortunately, what's even worse, that pedophiles can generate uh, child pornography content using AI, and that's the fear that that's being discussed as far as AI. But like with any piece of technology, anything that's made for good can be also used for bad. So, it was released by OpenAI, and now as we go through the years, we're going to see more of your legitimate AI sources be able to put stop gates in to create criminals from using AI for nefarious purposes. But also the downside is that in order for us to write the AI ship, it's going to take years of research and just trial and error. Because when AI was put out, people were like, "Oh, this is great." But people that have, I guess, standardized mind was like, "Oh, this is great. This can change the world." But criminals, and when we create stuff, I don't think we always think of the criminal aspect, are looking at it going, well, how can I use this to make more money or to satisfy my own needs? And so we're just going to have to stumble through the AI growth spurt so that we can figure out how we can effectively use AI in a way that it's going to be positive for people to use and to lessen the fact that criminals can use AI to trick people or to pull off their own schemes.
Hmm. So how is this, do you believe, as affecting the society as well? Just what's happening, talking about AI marketing, because for me, marketing is a very interesting space, personally, because there is, seems like all the time, if you would go on Instagram, any social media platform, maybe excluding LinkedIn, LinkedIn is kind of, is a professional space, a little bit more, but it is a lot of noise, and obviously probably I don't know if you've seen the movie The Social Dilemma.
Oh, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
So how much of it do you believe is going to be shaping the society, like in that scenario?
You're going to love this. So I think every social media platform needs to have a call center because of the wave of hacked accounts, cloned accounts, and of course, the salespeople that approach you on all of the social media platforms, especially on LinkedIn. I think if you include a human factor with social media, which is kind of funny because that human factor has to be there. So if I'm locked out of my LinkedIn account or locked out of my Facebook account, rather than going through a chat bot, which works in a lot of instances, if I get stuck or maybe I just don't know, I need to be able to talk to a human who can either A, reclaim my account, or B, um, just have it where I can talk to somebody to walk me through the process of reclaiming my account. One of the best instances that I've seen as far as social media and email was Yahoo. We had a customer who is an older adult, memory's not the best, forgot his Yahoo credentials to get into his email. There was a legitimate number where I was able to call Yahoo. They had me submit a piece of government ID and a picture of the individual, and we were able to reclaim the account. And it wasn't, and I don't think it was even taken over by cyber criminals, but it's a regular instance of I forgot my account credentials. So I think we really do need to see a human element involved in,
Yep.
because even with verified accounts on social media, that's not a guarantee that that's not a criminal behind the screen. It's just you've got a criminal who was able to provide a government ID and go through the whole clear process on LinkedIn to get a verified account, or someone paying money for a Meta Instagram or Facebook account. But we need people to be able to help people on social media so that we don't continue to have the problems that we have.
Tricky business. All I can say is a tricky business, right? To keeping yourself safe and making sure your accounts are safe. With this call centers, do you believe it lacks? You know, in certain countries, maybe it's easier to reach those call centers in US because obviously these companies, a lot of these huge companies, they're all set up in US. And rather than having those call centers, I don't know if I tried to call any of those in Ireland. I don't know if I'm going to find any of these numbers in terms of call centers. Probably they're going to be in US. So do you believe that's a challenge of also because 350 million people, that's what's in US, right? The entire world is 7+ billion people, right? And they're having a hard time reaching, about the million+ account that they have.
Yeah, it's not the whole US based thing, because heck, they could have call centers over in Ireland or the Philippines or India, you name it, it can happen. It's the fact that you're talking to a live person who's better able to understand what the scenario is rather than a chatbot that's guessing what's going on. A good example I can give you, one of our customers was running Norton antivirus, and the antivirus interpreted an action that happened on their computer as a man-in-the-middle attack. So she lives in a small town, but thought that somehow some hacker had set up a network to get her information. And keep in mind, this is a small business owner too. Not to say that small businesses aren't important, but this action by obviously machine language in Norton had this lady thinking that there was a man-in-the-middle attack going on with her network. And it was like, it wasn't that, but the software was programmed to say, well, if XYZ happens, then must be the scenario. Same thing with chatbots. And so you can't always rely on machines to give you credible information. And the one thing we haven't talked about as far as AI is concerned, the fact that these generative AI tools are still in the experimental phase. People are acting like, oh yeah, this is it. It's like, no, they're telling you, use it, but be careful because the information is not accurate. So use it at your own risk, So
you talked about, I think it's an interesting topic too, because I don't know, probably, I came from lower kind of middle than lower, lower than middle. That's what I'm trying to say. But, family that, we hadn't had a lot of money. So obviously I got my first computer, late, probably was like, I don't know, 13. Because I know now, kids these days, you're 7 and you have like PS5 computer, newest iPhone,
right,
whatever. So, but I remember, talking about security and, anti-software, like it's like having, proper security on your computer, right? So it was very important. You talked about Norton, right? So in terms of that, like, how is that really beneficial for businesses? Because there's people saying, oh, it's all just a gimmick, right? They're just trying to sell, this security, and there is nothing there to actually protect your computer. Is this really useful for businesses? Is there anything that you can recommend? And on top of it, maybe it's going to be a heavy, long question here in terms of technology too. So speaking about antivirus, like software, hardware, computers, phones, is there anything in particular that you see that you can offer for either individuals and businesses that it's
Yeah,
safe to
so
use?
yeah, so for businesses, it's kind of an interesting mix because Trend Micro and the Norton Enterprise editions were good for servers. But guess what? People are moving away from servers, so you don't have a need for that antivirus software. And most companies are using cloud-based utilities
Yep.
to store their information because the only thing you have to worry about with the cloud is that your internet stays up at your company. But with us moving away from servers, and that move is caused because servers require so much maintenance and updates, and it's just a large expense that companies can get away from. So now we're looking at protection mainly on a desktop level, and in those instances, probably the tools that both Windows and Macintosh users can take advantage of are already built into the operating system. So
Yep.
if you're a Windows user, you got access to Windows Defender, and then the Macintosh operating system itself is an antivirus solution. So you don't have to worry about those third-party programs like, say, a Norton or a McAfee or ESET or Avast or even AVG, because now because cybercrime has evolved more to being a problem with humans rather than the machines, then you don't need those third-party utilities anymore. And if you've noticed, there's been a trend with antivirus software companies buying up other companies and buying and including other services in their products. And Norton's the best example because Norton owns LifeLock now. So if you have an issue with an identity problem, you've got to get LifeLock, but you don't have to get the antivirus or the anti-spam or any of the other tools that they have built in. Same thing with McAfee and other tools out there. You just
Mhm.
don't need that third-party software protection anymore. And what's funny, the trend now when you call these companies is to ask for a refund is now option number one or option number two when you call these companies because you're starting to see a mass exodus of people that are moving away from desktop or laptop and even smartphone antivirus solutions.
In terms of browsing, let's say you're on a computer, like, is there any particular that you see, just, individual, someone influencer, and I'm looking for secure browsing? Is that like a Chrome, Firefox, DuckDuckGo, or anything like that that you feel is like secure to browse?
Well, yeah, because one of the things that people need to worry about as far as your popular browsers, such as Safari and Microsoft's Edge and with Google's Chrome is that these companies are gathering your data through your browser. So wherever you go, Microsoft, Apple, and Google are looking at your data. If you want to experience a browser experience where they're not searching your data, then browsers like Brave browser, Firefox, and Opera are the browsers that you want to gravitate towards because these nonprofit entities are not interested in
Mm,
collecting your personal data in order to make you more an attractive product to the people that advertise with them. So that would be my recommendation. Those three browsers, Brave, Firefox, and Opera, that you would use in order to keep a lower profile on the internet. Now, it's not to say that a Google or a Microsoft or even Apple will get breached because you're talking some of the top cybersecurity or anti-cybersecurity systems in the world. But there's always that, well, what if scenario that you have to worry about. So,
yeah.
it's a good idea to gravitate to a browser that's more about protecting you than one that is selling your secrets. And one more browser I was going to bring up is the Tor browser or Tor browser, which is designed to help keep your information safe and secure as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sounds like a good list. Um, Technology. So that was my question too, in terms of using computers and phones. So the big question, we have both sides too. We have people using Mac versus PC, Android versus iPhone, right? What's the best? I mean, because a lot of it just people just lean towards, because Apple, obviously, though, that's the reason why they are a $1 trillion brand, because they are a $1 trillion brand, because they know what they're doing in terms of marketing. Steve Jobs, again, a genius of his time, and they sold a good product, right? But they knew how to sell it, how to market it to the right audiences and whatnot. But excluding that, the design, all those different pieces, like in terms of just tech, hardware, like what's this? Is there a safe place for businesses to use, for individuals to use in terms of technology?
Well, technology doesn't really matter what you use, Apple or Mac or iPhone or Android phone. I mean, they all do the same thing. And in most instances, up until the pandemic, all of your semiconductor parts came from Taiwan. So your only thing that you had to worry about is were the Chinese installing chips in your devices in order to spy on you. So obviously in that instance, you want to stay away from Chinese branded products so that
That
they're
was
not spying.
that was an issue with Huawei in USA, right? Because a lot of corporative companies used to use Huawei phones, right?
That's right, Huawei phones, and then Lenovo early on, like in the early 2010s, the semiconductors in Lenovo devices had spying chips in them as well. So, I mean, it's a huge problem. But usually, if you're going with, I won't say US based companies, but your large tech companies like Apple and Dell, then you're not going to experience that problem. But in today's day and age, you want to keep a mindset of, I just want it to work. So if you're currently an Apple user and you've got friends trying to convince you to go to Windows, just ignore them and stick with what you know. Same thing with Windows users. You got friends trying to convince you to go to Apple, stick with Windows, because Windows doesn't change that much. Mac OS doesn't change that much. And you want to stay with what you know, because obviously your goal is not to be in a scenario where you're trying to relearn your technology. In today's digital world, you got to get that device, get your stuff on it, and just keep moving. You don't have time to try to utilize and learn a new device. And ultimately, regardless of the device, they still have access to the same apps. You got Facebook on everything.
Yeah.
Same thing with LinkedIn and other applications. Even Microsoft Word is available on all of your devices. So it's, you just stick with what you know and just simplify your life.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good advice. I mean, as we kind of running out of time here, there's so much still to cover. You talked about the copyright issues, and obviously we've seen an article. I seen it on LinkedIn some time ago, with obviously Sam's company OpenAI was in a lawsuit with not New York Times, I think, one of those newspapers, because obviously they said that you actually scroll through our written information and you pulled it and you kind of give it to people. So that was a big deal. They were in a lawsuit for how much, millions of dollars. I don't know if they settled or what's happening there. Obviously TikTok being banned in a certain countries, and you talked about China, and so there's so many different topics talking about just copyright issues, keeping yourself safe and whatnot. So we can go on here forever. But for people, obviously, as a chief tech expert, reach out to Burton Integral. You're going to find all the links included in the description, whatever. If you're listening or watching this episode on YouTube or whatnot, make sure to get in contact with this individual. LinkedIn is a great place. I can recommend that. That's how we connected. So go and reach out to him, have a chat. Do you do business internationally as well, or US only?
We're kind of international now, aren't we?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yes, we do business international. We've got
Awesome.
customers that originated in the Kansas City area who have moved on out of the country, and we still can remotely support their stuff and give them advice as far as the latest technology is concerned. real quick, we had a customer leave the US and go to the US Virgin Islands. And of course, when people think about moving, the last thing they think about is internet speeds. So you always have to have that conversation. Yeah, I know you're moving. I know the area is attractive, but what's your internet speed going to be like when you reach that location?
Yep.
And we've had dozens of customers that had to rethink their moving process because the internet wasn't so great where they were moving to. So that gives you an idea
Well,
of how we could help people.
yeah, that's awesome. And again, these days now we have Starlink as a service, so there's options. There's options available.
Oh, listen to you. Starlink ain't everywhere yet. It's
Exactly. Yeah,
it's in most places, but it ain't everywhere because we've had
everywhere.
people that we've recommended that too, and it's like it ain't here yet. So then they've had to wait, and then they finally eventually get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. But look, for the people, as Burton said, I listened to the DJ Khaled song the other day. We're global, so he's global. Integral is doing global business, so make sure whatever you are, reach out with your questions to him directly. Again, as I said, I recommend LinkedIn. Pleasure, Burton. I learned a bunch. I learned a ton, and I'm, continue to learning, because cybersecurity, you cannot get enough of that information and overprotect yourself, right? So it's all about protecting your business, your assets, digital assets in the digital economy that we live in today, and continue to live. So I really greatly appreciate your advice, tips, and being on the show today.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I guess I'll see you in June.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yes.
All right, take care.
All right, you too.